To the north of here, above Drumorta Lodge, there was held a memorable Scottish Kandahar race, one specially full of excitement and interest by reason of the unusual terrain, the only suitable place that season to hold such a race, and also for reasons which the race convener, Colin Fleming, now with me, will tell you. Now, Colin.
Apart from a slight problem with the stopwatch, which resulted in bodies hurtling on top of one another lower down the slope in closer succession than the course setter had intended, the other features of the course were, firstly, a steep gully on the right-hand side with an overhanging cornice, which was used to provide an element of variety by the setting of two pairs of closed flags on the edge of the cornice, encouraging the good skiers to stand up and maintain their way through the two pairs of flags, and the less good to fall in a struggling heap at the bottom. The other feature which caused a certain amount of excitement and indeed some controversy was the situation of the Zeal at the foot of an extremely steep slope, from the top of which the flags at the bottom could not be seen unless the race course had been properly reconnoitred beforehand.
Thanks, Colin. You explained the circumstances very well indeed, and I'm sure people will understand just what the difficulties were. The stopwatch trouble was due to the starter not realizing that the stopwatch sweep of 360 degrees covered only half a minute and not 1 minute. Now some reconnoitering. Now Philip Rankin is back with me again. He is now wearing his hat as editor of the Scottish Ski Club Journal and has something to say now about this special race. You better take your hat off first, Philip, eh?
Well, whatever hat it is, it's really all part of the very same story.
Just a break-in to tell you, the race itself has started.
You will have noticed here that there was a very marked difference in the standard of skiing. I think that is perhaps the most outstanding feature of this whole sequence. And what had actually happened is that Scotland had begun to move into a more efficient era after the war. Racing was the key to it. We had many skilled racers. They came for a whole decade or so. They came mainly from Scandinavia, students at Edinburgh University. Then there were army people who had learned to ski the British Army on the Rhine, where they sent them to keep them out of worse mischief. And we began to see what racing ought to look like. And the next era is the ski lift era, and we take off again. But this tremendous jump in standards was really, I think, brought about very much by racing. And Colin Fleming was one of the stars who held the racing fort for many, many years.
Well, thank you, Philip, for your admirable review of the earliest Scottish skiing scene and about the evolution, both natural and deliberate, from the skiing as it was to what it became in later days now. Back to this Kandahar race scene. This racer completed the challenge of the edge of the steep gully part of the course and is then running to the precipitous slope above the Zeal. And you will see again in the almost vertical drop concealed just before the finish. And here's one to whom the hazard didn't seem to worry at all. Perfectly all right. And another success at the finish anyway. Well, that's all, folks.